Welcome to Chasing the Beats, a show dedicated to weeklybeats.com artists, their songs, and stories from the 2024 season. I'm your host, SQF, and our guest today is Napear. All right, welcome to the show, Napear. Am I saying that right?
Yes. Everybody gets
cool.
you. I'm actually shocked that you got it correct on the first try.
I meant to ask before we started recording, so I was like, okay, here we go.
Most people say Napear, and you know what? Whatever, it's fine. Yeah. Thanks for having me. So I said this on Discord before, but I'll say it for the record. I really appreciate that you're putting in all the work for this. It's so cool to have an opportunity to kind of hear behind the scenes for all of these avatars that I've spent a year listening to their music, and I
Yeah,
recognize how much work you're putting in. So I just want to say thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I over the weekly beats year, I kind of felt the same way of like, man, I really wish I kind of knew some more behind the scenes about all these people that I'm listening to, all these songs. So, I threw it out there in the universe, sort of like a, if I say it, I am sort of committing to it, sort of
Sure,
thing.
sure, yeah.
And, the response I got was, "Yeah, people have talked about that doing that before." So then that kinda, like, egged me on even
Sure.
more.
Well, it's super awesome. So I'm glad to be a part of it. Thanks for having me, but thanks even more for doing it. It's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been just so cool to hear everybody else's stories and stuff. So
Yeah, and that's what keeps me coming back to make them because I'm like, "Oh, I'm interested to talk to this person," and then I just, bullshit for a while about the music that I've been listening to for the last year plus, and, then it's over. So
awesome,
then I do it
awesome,
again. So,
cool.
yeah. So, to dig right in, was this your first weekly beats?
It was, yeah. So I feel like everybody who has answered this question with a yes, I found out about it through the M8 community. I'm not directly part of the M8 community. I'm not involved in the Discord. I mean, to be honest, I'm terrible at Discord. I'm barely involved in the Weekly Beats Discord, and that's the most active I am anywhere. But I follow a bunch of content creators who make videos around the M8. And during week one, I think it was Avril Cadabra put out a video,
Yeah.
and I was like, what is this weekly beats thing? I got to find out about this, right? It was
Yeah.
3 hours, maybe 2 hours before the deadline for the first week, and so I read about it. I watched Orange Drink's video on what weekly beats was about and how to participate in it, and I was hooked immediately. But at the time, I was like, well, there's only 2 hours before the deadline. There's no way I could finish something in 2 hours. So I'll start on week two. Little did I know how many times throughout the course of the year I was going to finish something in 2 hours, right?
Yeah. Right at the deadline?
Right at the death. Sometimes a little after. So one of the tricks that I landed on was I would go in and submit my track and click submit right away and then go and edit the description because the description took longer than the
Mm.
upload did. And
Man,
that
you're really cutting it to the wire.
yeah, almost every week. Almost every week. I had what felt like an unfortunate run of technical difficulties or things breaking in weird ways or me having just ridiculous overly ambitious projects that I thought I was going to get done in a day somehow and then
Mhm.
didn't and had to pivot at the last minute. So yeah, I got
Yeah.
real good at getting it in at just at the wire.
Yeah, I was always too paranoid about being close to the wire that, like, I never had I maybe posted, like, once or twice on Sunday. So that's how scared I was of, like, the deadline.
There's technically I only have 50 uploaded tracks on Weekly Beats. And I did 51. I completed 51. But I think week 14 or something, I had it uploaded. I clicked the upload, but I didn't click submit, and then I went to go and get dinner. And it was yeah, and it was before I had gotten involved in the Discord. I didn't know that there were late links.
Oh, yeah, you're just like, "Well, that's it."
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it was like, I did it. I know I did it. I'll count it, whatever. But yeah, no, it was. I don't know if there. I think there was one track that I finished on Monday, but it was only because I had a school project that lined up with it. I had some
Ah.
other thing. But yeah, other than that, it was like within minutes every time.
And so what was your musical experience or song making experience before Weekly Beats?
Sure. So, song making experience probably started in high school. Like a lot of people, I did. I was an instrumentalist. I started a band as a kid. I played a few different instruments, but in high school, I had the stereotypical like pipe dream high school band. But I didn't actually play in the band. I was supposed to. I was supposed to play the bass, but I didn't have a bass. Right? We had a lead singer who had a guitar, and then I had a friend who also had a guitar, and then I didn't have a bass, and the guy who was going to play the drums didn't have drums. So, but but I wrote all the songs. So I wrote all the tunes, and then I wrote all of the lyrics. Um, and it was particularly in the high school experience, like 80% of the reason to have a high school band as like a teenage boy is to impress girls.
Of course, yeah.
Well, and the thing that killed is the lead singer had an incredible like bass baritone voice. He is a professional singer now. He's a touring singer now, right?
Oh, okay.
Amazing voice. And so I'm sitting in the audience, like at a high school party, while he's just singing in this like gorgeous bass baritone voice. And all these girls are swooning. And I'm like, well,
I wrote
I
that.
wrote that. Eyes roll. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like that meme where the guy's standing in the corner and he's like, "They don't know that I wrote that song." Yeah.
Exactly.
Like in the corner of the party.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why I started writing music. I think for me, I learned over the years I've learned to play I think like 12 or 15 different instruments. Most
Wow,
of them
okay.
not well. Most of them not well. Uh, because I've never really been interested in learning to play songs. Like I don't ever want to play other people's music. I learn other people's music so that I can play the instrument, so that I can
Yeah.
just play, right? And as soon as I can just play, then I stop being interested in all of that other stuff. So that's been a lot of my experience as far as tune writing is concerned. So like when I was in high school, I had a trumpet. I
I
loved the
also
trumpet.
played trumpet in high school.
Nice. So I didn't play trumpet in a band in high school. I played it in middle school, but I kept the trumpet.
Oh, no, you're right. That was middle school. Getting my timeline messed up. I switched to guitar in high school because 'cause I'd get the girls that way.
Yeah, yeah. So that was me in the Navy. After I graduated from high school, that's when I bought my guitar, and it was much more effective than the trumpet. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, agreed. I had more success with the guitar.
But one of the things I did with the trumpet, so I lived on uh, Lowry Air Force Base before the fences came down. But when it was still open, so it was this big abandoned base where there was fences and abandoned buildings that weren't filled with like rabble or anything. And so I would go into these big warehouses and just sit with my trumpet and play, just listening to the sound of the trumpet in the space, which is where I think my propensity or affinity for writing melodies came from. Is just sitting in a big empty space with like natural reverb, playing a
Yeah.
trumpet so nobody else could hear it but me. Then yeah, then after high school, I got a guitar. Right in the Navy, I got a guitar, and I played guitar for like 15 years, 10, 15 years, medium seriously, but never really got great at it. And then life happened, family, and all that stuff. And then COVID. So we get to 2020, and like most people, I was like, you know what? I got all this extra time. I'm finally gonna learn to play. And for me, it was the piano. So I signed up for some online lessons.
Wow.
I started learning the piano, and it unlocked music theory for me in a way that nothing else had before. Like
Amazing.
it just suddenly how intervals worked made sense, and I got really obsessed with it. I'm one of those people. Like I start down a rabbit hole and I just keep going until I hit bedrock. and I find myself still falling down that rabbit hole. So like I
I am
started.
also a rabbit holer, so
Well, watch out for the piano, man. Let me tell you.
I went on a piano escapade for a bit, I think around COVID times, where I was trying to learn basically all the scales and inversions and read music.
Sure.
That lasted a little bit, and then I sort of was like, "Where is this going? I'm never gonna be like, just a badass piano player." Maybe that was, my own negative self-talk, talking me down, but I was like, I think what I actually enjoy is like writing and making music, and like the playing it is cool. Like I play guitar, but I kind of get more joy out of the like assembling.
And see, so I'm right there with you, and that is where the rabbit hole opened up underneath me, right? So I found a course on Coursera that I took for free because you can take the courses for free. It was on music theory and harmony,
Mm.
and the course itself was structured in such a way as to be music theory, but like in the context of modern music. It wasn't just like old classical music. It was breaking down how music theory works, given that music theory isn't rules, it's a way of understanding music. It's a way of
Mhm.
dissecting other people's music so that you can then learn from it. And then after that, I took a harmony course. And then after that, I took a composition course. And then 5 years later, I'm finishing a master's degree in composition.
Oh,
Like,
whoa, dude. Talk about a rabbit hole.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It just keeps going. It just keeps
Wow.
going.
Yeah. And I do coming from guitar, the going down the like music theory piano rabbit hole, it does make way more sense.
Right? Yes. Yeah.
Like,
So I mean, like guitars are great, and I get why. Like, get now that I understand music theory, why
yeah.
they're tuned the way they are. Right. But before you understand the music theory, the tuning makes the intervals a little bit abstract. You can't feel it in the
Yeah.
same way.
Yeah.
But on a piano, like you can just feel what a third is, and then
Mhm.
internalize that feeling. So like that sad feeling you get from a minor third has a physical presence that's that extends across the entire keyboard, right? Doesn't matter where you put your hand. If it's in that shape, it's going to make that sound. And that
And
was
you
what
can
opened it up for me.
build and you can build anything just knowing those relationships
Exactly.
because
Once you
it's the
get the
same everywhere.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. And I know for there's some violin players that I know that there was a moment on the violin where those things opened up for them, and that's cool. And but I, like I said, I've learned to play like 6 or 12 or 10 or 12 instruments, and and yeah, it wasn't until I got to the piano that that really opened up. But what it gave me the ability to do is then think about how what in other music I liked and how to then take that to make the things that I wanted to make.
Got it. So, really understanding how the other, like, music that you like is assembled and, like, kinda how to like, understanding the pieces that you like about it at a, like, more granular level.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think it's really common for people to conflate music theory with harmony as studies, right? Because harmony is where the rules live. Harmony is a cultural thing. There are many different harmonies out there, studies of harmony, and they all have lots of things to say about how you're supposed to make music, right? But music theory, that's not what it's about. It's about dissecting music. It's about having terminology, vocabulary that allows you to label things so that you can communicate with other people about it. And once I got that, once I understood what music theory what problem it was trying to solve, and then learned how to use it, then I can go and listen to something and start using those labels to break it apart and
Got it.
understand, oh man, when this happens, it makes me feel sad. And I could see that, oh, there's a minor sixth interval in there, and it's then followed by a minor third interval. That made me feel a kind of way. So when I want to make other people feel that kind of way, I can use that same little micro motif, right?
Yeah. I mean, listening to your songs, I like your piano songs sound great. Like, I never would have guessed that you haven't been playing piano since like a child.
Well, you know, the and there's a great secret. When we get there's a I think we have a couple piano songs
Yeah, we
lined
do.
up. So we'll talk a little bit about the production there. But I use a bunch of production tricks. I
Okay, okay,
I am not good enough to play the songs that I have written. I'm a
okay. That does make me feel better.
the way that I always say it is I'm a composer, not a musician, right? I'm
Right.
just like a screenwriter is not an actor. There are plenty of actors who are good screenwriters. There are plenty of screenwriters who are good actors, but it's not the same skill set,
Yeah,
right? And composing and playing are not the same skill set. I am fine. I'm an adequate player, but I
yeah,
actually know how to write. And then I make up for that with production skills, right? So I hide my inabilities technically by making up for them in the DAW.
yeah.
And we'll talk about like the tricks that I have that I
And
use
I
to do
hide everything by sequencing it, so
that. That's reasonable too, though, man. That's reasonable too. I think
yeah.
one of the things that I love about the Weekly Beats community in particular is there's so many different ways to look at how to make music, and there's so many different places people come from, and it still ends up in really awesome places. Like
Mhm.
there's so much good music that like some of it's just like six strings and a feeling, right? And some of
Yeah,
it is like really complex, like huge Dallas setups with like sequencers and all of those things still make music that sounds good, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, everyone's creating what they want to create,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think it's even more true, like, halfway through the year when
Oh,
people are
sure.
sorta like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna make whatever."
Well, and I think that so this I want to say this was in when you were talking with Neon Liminal. Um, but yeah, there's a point where like you have been vulnerable with a group of people already,
Yes, yes.
right? Like you've already exposing
Nothing
yourself
bad has
through.
happened.
Yeah, exposing your music is actually like it feels more vulnerable than talking to people.
Yeah, yeah.
And then by about quarter way through, it turns into this live journal where you're like talking about the shit that's happening in your life
Mhm.
and people are still there and supportive. And then yeah, it's like, you know what? Let me try something I've never tried before. Because the worst thing that's gonna happen is Replicator's gonna listen to it and he's gonna have a few ways I can make it better.
Exactly.
And that's not so bad, right?
Yeah. What sort of things did you learn from Weekly Beats that maybe you hadn't from other, like, music composing or just songwriting that you've done in the past?
Sure. Well, so I think the thing that I learned, I think the biggest thing that I learned is what I'm capable of on different timelines, right? That extra pressure of that deadline and and the desire to hit that deadline. Like I said, there was a bunch of times where I had a technical issue that was like, "Oh, I have 6 hours left and I have to start from scratch. What can I do
Mhm.
in 6 hours?" And I think the shortest amount of time that went down to was 45 minutes. I think there was a track that I finished in 45 minutes.
Nice.
And what I really learned is given different sets of time, I know what I can reach for, right? If I have
Mhm.
4 hours, I know that I can complete. If I have an idea in my head for a piano track, I can make that I can record that in 4 hours, right?
Yeah.
If I have 2 hours, I can't do that. There's not enough time, right? But I do know that like I can go and make an ambient track that I'm going to be happy with in that time frame, right?
Yeah.
So I think more than anything else, I learned what I'm capable of in very specific timelines. And then I also learned my tools better than there's nothing that has taught me my own workflows. I'm very much a process oriented person, right?
Mhm.
There's three different ways that I'll start any kind of a composition project. And then for every single like piece of gear that I have, there's a process that's associated with each one of those three starting places. And before Weekly Beats, I had vague ideas of what those processes were. Now I know exactly what the processes are for each one of those things. And I know that I can flip a switch, turn it on, and go. And I never know where I'm going to end up, but I
Mhm.
know where to start and I know what the next step is. And that's all I ever need.
Yeah, is your music creation? Because I know some people that I've talked to, they're like, "I am trying to, like, capture this emotion," or, "I have a starting place in mind." Where do you start with a project?
So it depends. there are three broad places that I can start a project from a technical perspective. When I count step one, I'm going to start laying down music. Either I start with my rhythm. A rhythm for me is drums and bass. I start with my harmony, which is typically going to be pads or keys for me, or I start with a melody. And there's lots of things that could end up with melody. But there's a step zero for me too. Usually there's something that inspires me to start going. There's some little like I hear a sound that I think is cool, or I have a feeling that I want to capture. And I try not to be prescriptive about what those things are. Right. So anything that
Mhm.
happens to inspire me, I try to follow that wherever it leads me. But then I know that I have to funnel it through one of those three places.
Yeah.
Right. So like as an example, I am a native instruments guy. I like to have lots of options available to me, and so I'll go through. I'll pick airy as a filter in my contact player, and then just start going through patches and listening to stuff and like noodling on the piano a little bit.
Mhm.
And the first time that I have to lean in, the first time that I hear something that's just really cool and I have to go with it, that it's like, okay, this is a track. I'm going to start from here. And
Yeah.
then whatever I start playing, that puts me in one of those three places, right? Like if it's like a groovy bass sound, well then I'm starting with the rhythm and I know what I need to do there. If it's something where I'm playing big chords, well, okay, then I'm working with harmony and I start with that. If it's something where I'm telling little stories with the sounds, well then I start with melody and I follow that process, right? Um, so I my step zero can be anything that inspires me to make a sound. Actually, a really funny one. Mary Spender videos. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about
Yeah.
Mary Spender's videos, but I have never made it through an entire Mary Spender video without having to pause it and go and play music. Like I don't know what it is. Just that there's something inspiring about the way that she talks about music. But so that step zero, I let that be whatever it's going to be. But step one depends. Harmony, rhythm, or melody. I have processes for each. And then if I'm doing harmony and I'm on my modular, I have a specific set of processes that I'm going to follow versus if I'm sitting at the piano, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that that's one of the things that Weekly Beats really helped me nail down was what all of those processes are.
Yeah. And it sounds like those processes sort of direct a little bit of the outcome because like you've got a mix of piano music, ambient. We've even got like a trap inspired song we'll listen to later.
Indeed.
So like you have varied music creation outcomes.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. One of the one of the core tenets of my life is I don't try to follow plans because plans always fall apart. I follow processes, right? So
Where were
I
you in the
know
military or something?
I was. I was. It doesn't show. Yeah, yeah. So like I like to follow processes because I know that they're going to take me someplace good. If I have a process that I've worked out, I don't have to know where I'm going. I just have to know what I'm doing now and what the next step is.
Yeah.
And if I always know what the next step is and I know when to stop, then I'm always going to end up someplace that I want to be, though I may never know what that is to begin with. And I don't know
Yeah.
that there's a lot of tracks that I have done where I really knew what I was going to end with when I started. Um, there's stuff for school where like I know it has to be within a specific time and it has to have a
Mhm.
certain feel or whatever, but the actual thing that I end up with is kind of almost always a surprise. But
Would you say there's like one breakthrough process that you uncovered during Weekly Beats?
yes, yeah, actually, and this is one of the things that we'll talk about when we get into some of the piano stuff, how to fake that playing the piano, right? How to make it sound like I know how to play the piano because I there was and this was the best. This was the best. There was I think it was actually the one that I chose, Gilded Shadows. Somebody like was like, "Oh, the playing in this is fantastic." I think it was actually Replicator too, and he's
Nice,
like,
nice.
yeah. That's
If he can't sniff it out, no one can.
exactly right. Um, and I got that comment I got that compliment and I was like, oh, I totally won because I did not play
Yeah.
this. I did, but not all at once, right? So I think that was really breakthrough for me, figuring out how to decompose something that is performative and perform all of the parts in a way that allowed me to reassemble it later so that it sounded like a single performance.
Yeah.
That I definitely couldn't do that before Weekly Beats. And I think Gilded Shadows is the place where that really completely unlocked. You can hear a real shift. There's a couple solo piano pieces that I did at the beginning where I was just playing, and they're fine. But then there's like this sudden shift where it sounds much more professional, and that's why.
Got it. And that's just from putting in the reps.
Yeah. Yeah, yes. Well, and so I think another part of it was learning the tools. So I I am a Logic user. Everything passes through Logic eventually. Even the stuff that I did where it was like all hardware, I mastered it in Logic. Everything passes through Logic eventually. And there was a there I don't remember what the exact project was. It might have been for school, but the tempo there's a tempo track that shows up at the top of Logic, and you can change like tempo per section. And there's this little black dot that if you grab it and you drag it, it'll make a curve, like it's like a little Bezier tool. And I didn't realize that. Like I was trying to move it and getting frustrated with the thing, and I grabbed the wrong dot, and it curved, and I was like, oh, "You can do curves? I can automate tempo and put curves in?" And then I tried on a Weekly Beats track, like, well, what if I added in these little tempo variations so that it feels like it's breathing, like I'm playing more naturally? Like, what would that sound like?
Mm.
And yeah, so it was actually totally just an accident. Like I clicked the wrong button.
I mean, we've talked before about how the accidents sort of make all the great things.
Yeah, for sure. One of the tracks that I picked for later, the Where We Dwell, man, the sequencer that I use for that is just a happy accident generator. It's the whole reason that I like that sequencer is because it's just like it's like an industrial happy accident machine.
What sequencer?
It's the SQ64, the Korg SQ64.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Is
love
that
it.
the one that they came out with, like, last year?
Oh no, I
Oh,
want to
no,
say that
no.
this is a few years older than that.
I'm looking it
Um,
up. I've heard of it, but I've never played with one.
oh man, it's great. It's great.
Okay, yeah.
I have a bunch of sequencers around the house. I have an affinity for sequencers.
Ooh,
That
yeah,
is
yeah.
in my top 5, easy, and it's my go-to for when I don't have an idea, right? Like if there's a thing I know that I want to do, then I'm going to go for like a Keystep Pro because I can just put in the idea, right? But
Mhm.
when I don't know what I want to do, that SQ64 is a great way to find it.
Yeah, so what's, like, the main avenue for, happy accident exploration on the SQ64?
All right, so there's you can set it up to do um like per I don't remember the term for it. Like you hit the note and then it sequences in and steps to the next note. Step sequencing.
Mhm.
That kind of step sequencing. So you can also set it up to do like like pre-built scale isometric keyboard, right? So essentially what I'll
Mhm.
do is I'll just figure out what scale I'm going to be in, and I'll kind of just randomly push notes and fill up a whole 16 notes or 64 notes or whatever. And then I'll go through and randomly turn off things that look like a pattern, that visually looks like a pattern. And the thing that's cool about it is you can then rotate the pattern. So you can just grab a knob and spin it through time, and
Mm.
it'll loop front to back. And I'll listen to it and just keep turning it until I hear something that catches me, and then I'll dial it in. Um, yeah.
Cool. And is that sequencing, like, your modular or
Oh,
all
I use it
internal
for
sounds?
I use well. So the SQ64 is just a sequencer. All it does is sequencing,
Okay,
right?
no onboard sounds.
Yeah, no sounds at all. But I use it for lots of stuff. So I do use it with my modular, but I also have a couple of desktop synthesizers, the Polyend synth and the Axis Virus TI, and it's
Ooh,
great in
yeah.
those. Yeah, yeah. It's great in those. It's great in those environments, but also plug it into Logic, and use it as a MIDI controller for just in Logic. Um, so yeah, anything that I can plug it into, I will if I just need some ideas.
And it looks pretty affordable.
Yeah, it is not unreasonable, and it's fast to learn. That's another real key one. So like
That's cool.
the Hapax, Neon Liminal was talking about this in
Mhm.
last week's video or the week 19. I don't know when I'm coming out, but
You're
the so
episode 20.
awesome. All right. So Neon Liminal was talking about the Hapax. I love that sequencer. It's great. Fantastic sequencer. It's not the hardest learning curve, but it's really deep in what it can do.
Mhm.
So like you got to spend some dedicated time with it to really get everything out of it. It's crazy powerful. You can do awesome stuff, but like you got to spend some time with it.
Yeah.
SQ64, it's like 4 YouTube videos and you're going. It
Nice.
is, yeah, it's a fantastic sequencer. I love it.
Have you messed with the Oxy One?
I have not. I have
Okay.
not. So I have a hard and fast set of rules that keep me from burying myself in gear. Right. So I have a
I
design
probably need
philosophy.
to adopt these. Tell me.
So I have a design philosophy for the studio. There's a set of objectives that I'm always reaching for so that I know whether or not something fits in. For me, I aim for flexibility over perfection, which is to say that I would rather have something that sounds good but does many things than something that sounds great but does only one thing.
Mhm.
So everything in my studio does at least two things. That's one of the primary things that helps to rein me in. Part of the reason is whenever I have an idea, I want two different ways to do it in case something's already patched up. If if I have one thing patched up, I'm
Yeah,
going to be able
yeah.
to do it again in a different way, right? And then the second big one is that whenever I add something into the studio, it has to be it has to add net new functionality. If it doesn't add net new functionality, then I got to replace something. It's one in, one out,
Mhm.
right? So the Oxy One looks dope, but I
Yeah.
have a Deluge and I have a Hapax,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't really add net new functionality in that case, particularly at the price point that is. It's awesome. It looks great. I'm
Yeah.
sure I would enjoy it, but it fills the same slot as the Hapax does, and that it's a hard
Yeah.
sell, right?
And I've always just been curious about the Oxy and the Hapax just because I like learning,
Sure.
like, how they work. But I don't have a modular setup yet. Uh, although I was watching Super Booth videos and I was like, "There's some pretty cool modules, maybe,"
So
you know?
not to spread the sickness, because Eurorack is a money incinerator. Let me tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
But the way, so I love VCV Rack. I love VCV Rack. It is an incredibly powerful piece of software, and you can get started with it for free. It's better if you get the pro version, and it's better if you get some of the like pro modules. But the pro modules are like $30 for 5 of them. It's
Oh, yeah,
way
yeah.
more affordable than like actual Eurorack. But part of the reason that some people struggle with VCV Rack over like a physical modular is that you don't have knobs to twiddle, right? You don't have
Mhm.
like buttons to push. The physical element of it that makes it much harder to interact with. So the way around that for cheap is to get an SQ64 as your sequencer and have that as a MIDI sequencer that you just plug into the keyboard or into the computer,
Yeah.
and then to get something like a Fader Fox where you have like
Mhm.
sliders and knobs, and I think the Korg Nano Control, I think that's the right name. That it's just sliders and knobs, and again, it's like a couple $100. It's very very affordable. And those two things, SQ64 as a hardware sequencer where you can actually punch notes in and get the same kind of sequencing experience that you would have with hardware, plus anything that gives you some faders and knobs to twist,
Yeah.
then suddenly VCV Rack is like a really good virtualization of actual modular, and it lets you learn something that is difficult, but like low
Yeah.
stakes. You spend a couple $100. And both of those pieces of equipment are just the MIDI controllers. You can use them in a bunch of other places.
Oh,
If
yeah,
modular
yeah.
doesn't land, they're not they're still useful, right?
Yeah.
So again, not to spread the sickness, but there are
What
cheap ways to get into it.
what other studio gear are your kind of, like, go-to
Okay,
pieces?
I'm glad you said go to. The list is long. For the last like 5 or 6 years, I've been slowly building out like a proper studio.
The dream
Yeah,
studio?
yeah, yes. So yeah,
With limitations.
yeah, with hard and fast limitations, actually. So you can kind of see. I mean, it's a podcast, so they can't see, but you can kind of see it. There's a desk behind me.
Yeah.
So I have a studio desk that's my primary rig. That's my primary setup. And that is a strict one in, one out space. If something is going to get added to my main setup, I have to get rid of something else because if it doesn't
Yeah.
fit on the desk, if it's not first order retrievable, if I can't see it and touch it and turn it on and play it,
Yeah,
then
you
I'm
can
just
kinda
not.
see my pile of stuff back there.
Yeah, one, you got to have it accessible, right? Like it's
Yeah.
got to be right there, or you're just not going to use it. If it's sitting in a closet and I got to set it up, I'm not going to use it,
No, it's gotta
right?
be like, I can turn it on and, like, instantly start making stuff.
Exactly, right? So in that setup, I've got an Axis Virus TI 2, which in my opinion is the best desktop synthesizer that you can get. It's shots fired for all you Iridium folks, right? Uh, I think it's a great desktop synthesizer just because of how flexible it is. Again, my design philosophy is about flexibility. I want stuff that can do
Yes.
lots of stuff. I have a modular rig that is strictly 104 HP 7U, and I refuse to increase the case size.
Mhm.
That is the size that it is. I don't want it to be any bigger because it makes me make hard choices about what's important to me, right?
Mhm.
And I like that. Um, and then I have a Hapax that sequences basically everything. I control everything with it. I have a Deluge that's sitting in that spot, though I said offline that I was going to rib you about selling your deluge because I don't know how you can do that. Like I don't know
I
how you can.
well, as I've said before, I was, like, on the diehard, like, "I will never get rid of this thing" train, and then I got an M8 and it sat for, like, almost a year, and I was like, Am I a Deluge guy anymore? I think I'm gonna sell it."
No, I feel it. I feel it. And to be honest, like it's the deluge was definitely my mobile. Like it was my groove box of choice.
Mhm.
Um, Even with an M8, and we'll talk about that maybe a little later. But like it was my groove box of choice. And then I got a Polyant Tracker Mini.
Ooh, I do wanna talk about the Poly Tracker Mini.
Oh man, I love it so much. I love it so much. Like so the deluge still does work, but it does work for me because it's part of my primary setup. So
Mhm.
I use it as drum machine. I use it to control samples, but in reality, it's I'm underutilizing it in the setup. I'm currently in the mental debate as to whether or not to pull it from that
Well,
setup
because with
and put a
that and a
syntax.
Hapax,
Yeah,
like, that
there's a
seems
lot of
like a lot
duplication.
seems like, yeah, a lot of duplication.
A lot of duplication.
Seems
I
like some
mean,
rules are being broken.
well, so they each add net new functionality. The Hapax can do things that the Deluge cannot, and the Deluge can make sounds. The Hapax can't make
Yeah,
sounds,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But really, what I'm mostly using it for right now is as a drum machine. And that is just such a dramatic underutilization of that particular piece of gear.
Mhm.
So, what I'm thinking about is pulling it from the setup and relegating it to my Dallas Jam table and replacing it with a Syntac. But
Interesting,
yeah,
interesting.
well, because those analog drums sound so good, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, as I've mentioned a couple times, I got a Digitone 2 earlier this
Mm.
year.
The Digitone has been, is it Digitone or Digatone?
Tomato, tomato, you know?
So that one is. I'm very curious about that one because I love FM synthesis.
Yeah,
The sound of FM synthesis, just the craziness you can get from it, is just really compelling. Um, yeah, it's a cool
yeah,
device. It's a cool
yeah.
device. But
I'm liking it so far. I mean, it's definitely got limitations compared to the Deluge, but I think with everything, it's kind of like the limitations make you think about things a little differently
Yeah,
or do things
yeah,
differently. It's not always a bad thing.
indeed. Although the Deluge doesn't do FM particularly well. The new community firmware added the Dext plugin functionally into the Deluge, so now there's a DX7 built.
Oh, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. God,
Yeah,
they
and you
just keep adding so much onto there.
right, you can actually use DX7 presets and just load them straight in now. So
Wow.
all of those really great like 80s FM synth sounds you can just
That's
load in.
wild.
But it is a pain in the ass to do sound design with. Like it's not fun to work with
Yeah, I
on the
think
Deluge.
that's why I like as I got more into sound design and then went back to the deluge, like was not really inspired with the sounds
Sure.
and also not inspired with the workflow to do sound design.
Yeah, particularly if you're coming back to it, I totally get that, right?
Yeah.
So I for my the Deluge was part of my original setup. It was like the first real kind of synthesizer that I added into my space.
It
And
was
so
my first one as well. So,
well, and I learned sound design on it. That's where I learned
all right.
where I started with sound design. And so the like 37,000 buttons all make sense to me. Like how I can jump around and edit and sculpt the sound. I can do that without thinking about it. It's transparent. But like one of the biggest complaints that it, everybody should reasonably have with the Deluge is if you set it down for 4 months and you come back, man, it
That
might
was
as
my
well be
problem.
yeah, it might as well be written in Greek.
Well, on top of the fact that the community firmware is advancing at such a pace, it's
yeah.
like not only do you have to relearn what you knew, but now there's like all this other new stuff, which is like that's hardly a complaint about like, oh, this company is like advancing their software. I think it's great. It's just like I feel like I need to relearn it again and I kind of want to go in a different direction.
Well, in particular, like if you come back, you're struggling to make something like you can't remember how to do copy paste and you click some key button command and then suddenly you're on a screen you've never seen before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, and for the Deluge, I mean, without it's really like suddenly the pads all light up in a foreign way, and you're like, oh my god,
Mhm.
what did I just do?
Where you're like, am I in clip mode or am I in this other mode? Like, where am
Yeah,
I?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the poly end, what do you like about that versus the M8?
Oh, okay, all right. So that's they think
Because I've never
about
played with one and I've always been curious.
so the polyend tracker is the polyend tracker, tracker plus, and tracker mini. The tracker mini and tracker plus are functionally the same thing. Polyend tracker is a little bit different, but they think about how to they like the way that they approach the tracker workflow is completely different than the way that the M8 does, right? So the M8 comes from that LSDJ background where it's
Mhm.
like super granular control all the way down to tables like you can
Mhm.
control what's happening in a like per note way that's just very granular and it works its way out.
Yeah.
The polyend tracker comes from the like milky tracker renoise school of thought where you're working from out in, right? So you can see all of the tracks at the same time and you can see what notes are present for each one of those things across an entire thing, and you're thinking about things in terms of patterns, right? Not like patterns within an instrument, but patterns within a whole composition,
Mm.
right? So it's just you're approaching it from the opposite direction. um, which for me as somebody who's like music theory guy, that's really nice because then I can actually see my harmony. I can see the whole harmony at the same time.
Mm.
Whereas with the M8, you have to page back and forth to see what's happening with other instruments. Um, Another real big difference is the concept of fills. So there's lots of cool ways on the M8 that you can create random or semi-random patterns,
Mhm.
but in the polyend tracker, they just take that to a whole nother level. There are a whole bunch of fill algorithms that you can use. You can use them on the effects, you can use them on the instruments, you can use them on the notes themselves, and you can do it across the entire pattern. And an entire pattern is 8 bars of music. So essentially, you can, well, 8 bars of music in 4/4. So essentially, I can take like a whole 8 bar pattern and randomize or create an abstract Euclidean pattern that changes what instruments are playing on a single
I
lane across
see.
the whole thing. Like it's just you can do some really cool stuff. Almost all of the crazy shit that I do with drums comes from those fills. And that's not to say that you can't do crazy cool things on the M8. You're just thinking about it in a different
It's
way.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a different workflow.
Um, and I so like I on the other side of this, and this is an important one, the M8 from a sound design perspective. Oh man, the sound design is just it's so much nicer to do sound design on the M8 than it is
Really?
on the Polyant Tracker. Yeah, so the Polyant Tracker, it's fine for when you're working with samples, but you have to work per sample and it's destructive. So if I go in and do any kind of sound design, essentially I'm changing that clip. I'm resampling
Oh.
it right away, and changing what that clip sounds like, whatever that snippet is.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has synthesizers. I think it has 8 synth engines, and you can load up to 3 at any given time. But man, it's not like actually going and trying to do sound design through the interface that's available to you on the tracker is cumbersome.
Yeah.
Cumbersome enough that I have a Polyant synth so that I don't have to.
Ah, all right.
Like that's kind of the whole reason I have that is so that I can do sound design for the tracker. Whereas on the M8, man, sound design is just like it's so central to the
Yeah.
experience. It's so easy to move around and to copy things and move from one instrument to another, and like it's just sound design is wonderful. And the synths,
Yeah. I mean, and it sounds great.
yeah, yes,
And I
yes,
think that's what was so difficult about going back to the Deluge after learning more about sound design on the M8 because it's yeah, like you said, it's right there.
yeah,
Like I go one page and now I'm modifying parameters, listening to how it's sounding in the mix, and getting some like real time feedback, which feels much harder to do on the Deluge.
yeah. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. I think that if you're approaching sound design from like I'm going to design a patch that I'm going to use next Tuesday, the Deluge is a fine way to do that.
Yeah.
If you're like I'm in the middle of a groove and I need a bass that just thumps, like the M8 is a great way to do it,
Yeah.
right? Um, and then the synth voices, like the actual synths that are present, the braids, which I believe in M8 is called the macro synth, but
Hmm.
it's the mutable instruments braids algorithm under the hood. It's the open source software there that got pulled in. That is like the best digital synthesizer that's ever been made, and it being present on that device is just like that in and of itself
And I
fantastic.
love that hypersynth. So
Oh yeah, that's
yeah.
such a clever way to solve the problem of chords in with so many limited voices, with
Yeah.
such a strong limitation on voices. Like it's a good design.
Yeah. Well, should we start listening to some music?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
All
Let's do
right.
it.
Okay, the first one I've got up is uh Inner Sanctum.
Okay.
All right, let's go. All right, that was Inner Sanctum. Tell me
Yeah.
why that made one of your top picks.
So there's a couple reasons. There's a couple reasons. So the first reason is that that is actually the first like ambient piece of music I ever wrote.
That's the
Um,
first one?
that's the first one. That's the first
Wow.
one. So technically, there's one other ambient piece that I released for Weekly Beats, but it was generative. I didn't actually like. I set up a patch on my synth and it made sounds, but I didn't like write anything. You know, I didn't perform anything. Not to say that that's not a valid way to make music. It is. It's just it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, this
And
was you composed these sounds
yeah,
to be like
exactly.
this, yeah.
Exactly. And so this is the first one that I ever did. And I didn't realize how much I enjoyed the genre. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like I didn't know that this was something that like that would speak to me, and it really really did. It really really did. It's the most writing ambient tracks like this is the most raw form of composition I've ever found. When I like I said, I have a process for everything. For these, the process is I find a sound that I really like, or like I'll patch a sound that I really like, and then I'll record the entire like this. So this particular track is I think 5 tracks, all recorded in one take. That's I got a sound that I really loved, and I just hit record, and then I kept adding layers until I was more interested in listening to it than I was playing.
hmm,
So it's just very raw. It's very
yeah.
visceral. And that turned into like something that was really cathartic. Like just a really great way to express the feels, right?
Is it like getting lost in just, like, the flow of making it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
The and that like I said, that's how I can tell when I'm done. When I'm so lost in it that I can't hit keys anymore.
yeah.
Right. And so that's totally what it's about, is just getting absorbed in the sounds, in the soundscape.
And is that also because there's just, like, less decision-making critique going on?
Maybe, maybe, and you know, I don't know how much I'm willing to analyze it, if that makes sense.
Alright,
Like
alright. You're
like
like, I don't want to look so much behind the curtain that it,
yeah.
like that it becomes a scientific endeavor.
Yeah, well, and, you know, maybe this is a reaction to all of the music theory, right? Because
Yeah,
most of the time, like I'll write out like most of the piano pieces, like I write them before I ever start. Like I write out the harmony and I have an idea of what the structure is before I ever touch the keyboard. I know where I'm going for harmonic pieces in that way. And this is just so totally completely the opposite.
yeah.
That getting lost in it is not knowing what it is what makes it so awesome, I think.
Yeah, like, being there for the evolution of
Yeah.
it and not knowing where you're gonna end up and then sort of just getting, like, lost in it.
Yeah, it just feels very
Versus,
pure.
like, is this kick the right kind of kick?
Yeah,
Should
yes.
I flip through my 5,000 kicks, or should I do
Yeah.
some sound design, or
Oh, man, as opposed to, like, yes, spending 45 minutes dialing the resonance on a snare drum.
Yeah.
But so then the second reason that I picked this one is because it started something that was really awesome for me. So, JWH and I have collaborated on a bunch of things at this point.
Yeah.
Awesome dude. I'm so glad he was episode 1. He absolutely deserves to be episode 1, right? Just a
Well, and I
great
picked him as episode 1, and then now I'm finding out, like, this dude knows everyone and is, like, somehow connected to everyone, and I was like, "What an amazing person to start a
Yeah.
podcast with," because of just how connected he is to so many other people.
Yeah, you could not have picked a so when you were talking with Peter M, the whole comment about the traveling Wilburys thing,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So within that thread, somebody was like, well, or I think he wanted to be George Harrison, and I was like, of course you're George Harrison. George Harrison was the one that put the band together, and like Josh has done nothing if put together 50 bands over the
Yeah.
course of Weekly Beats. So Inner Sanctum was the first ambient thing that I did, but it was also I just wanted it to be cathartic and I just put it out there in Creative Commons. So there's a series of 4 pieces that are like this that are all CC0. They're just totally in the Creative Commons. Anybody can use them for whatever they want. And and JWH was like, "Hey, I don't know what it is about this thing, but I'm obsessed with it. Can I use it?" And I was like, "Well, it's Creative Commons. Of course you can." Like I don't even
Yeah.
have a choice in that, right?
His comment on the song was, "Okay, listen, you, Napier, you." Had this on repeat for much of the morning. This track has bewitched me, just immense and creepy AF, and
Yeah.
also beautiful. Coincidentally, I started working on a dirgy thing yesterday in C minor. May I please? I think
It
this might work perfectly.
Indeed. Indeed. So it ended up becoming a track that he called Dirge for the USA that I think is just a really beautiful piece of music. Um, and I think that he did a really great job of taking what I had as like raw material and then elevating it to something new that was better than it could have been otherwise. Um, and that started a pattern, right? There were 3 other tracks that I put out in this same series that I released in the Creative Commons, and he somehow found a way into all of them. There was one that was bananas, like literally the sound of like cracking ice bounced off the moon, and he still found a way to like make it work with the guitar. Um, but it started this whole series of collaborations. The Traveling Wilburys thing, that was one of these tracks. It was Rewards. I don't remember what he called it, what his track was. But anyway, so
Yeah,
that
I'm looking at, all your collabs with him, and there's
Rendered to
at
Rebel.
least 5.
Yeah, Rendered to Rebel. That was the one that
Yeah, yeah. With
so
Orange Drink and Tone Matrix
yeah, a bunch of folks. Emily was
and
on there.
Emily.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who actually had the best comment on Inner Sanctum because she is Josh's partner, right?
Yeah.
And so she was like, "Oh, that was you emanating from the basement." so the second reason that I really like this track, that I think it's special, is that it started that relationship with
Yeah,
JWH, right? Like it was the beginning of something that like it's just like a really awesome friendship, and like I feel like I've made a bunch of music that I really love with him at this point.
yeah,
And this was the first one.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just still astounded this is, like, your first ambient piece, and like you said, it sort of set a lot of other things in motion.
Yeah, it was cool. It's like a magical little moment. I mean, for how creepy it is
It's creepy, it's creepy.
it is very creepy. Yeah.
But, I mean, it is also a testament to just experimenting outside of the norm because, like, had you not done that, like, none of these collabs would have happened.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
and
you
there
wouldn't
was a
have found,
whole
like, a whole new genre of music that you really enjoy.
exactly, exactly. Well, and I think Neon Liminal commented on one of them where he was like, it'd be really cool if you did a suite where you connected these ambient things to some of the piano stuff, which is now a big project that I'm working on. Taking those
Awesome.
2 things and marrying them together, and that never would happen. There's a whole mode I
Yeah,
had that I didn't know,
that's really cool.
and so yeah, this was the first one.
Yeah, I think it's great, definitely creepy, but also just a really cool piece of work, and I didn't know, how much it set in motion for you, so that's also cool to know.
Yeah, yeah.
Alright, well, we're gonna keep it rolling with Gilded Shadow. All right, that was Gilded Shadow, a piano piece that you're gonna now tell us how you fooled us that you don't really play piano that well.
Yeah. Yeah, so this one is a magic trick. This one is a magic trick. I think it sounds like it is played particularly well, but there's but I did not. I did not. There are 3 big tricks that I use to make this sound really good. One, I record the left and right hand separately, completely separately. And when I record the left hand, so it's a waltz, it has a very specific timing. I slow it down to about half time, 3/4 time, so that I can get the timing perfect for the left hand. And I just play the left hand for the whole thing. So for most of the piano pieces, I write the harmony in advance, so like I know what the chord
Mhm.
progression is going to be. So I can do that. I can just record the whole thing. And then I'll go through and fix the timings a little bit and fix the velocities a little bit so that it sounds good. Then I speed it back up and then record the right hand completely separately, right?
Alright.
And typically what I'll do is I'll find a melody that is going to work and I'll record that part when I'm like, "Ooh, this is really good." Now I'm going to take that melody in the DAW and then copy and paste it to the second section and go and tweak it. So I already have a performance that I like. I'll go and change some of the velocities. I'll change a little bit of the notes on some of the timings,
Got it.
and
Just
then
to make
I'll
it a little bit
change
more unique.
I'll add in a couple notes and like change some of the harmony. So I might take something that's sitting on a third and swap it for a fifth or whatever. Like I'll go through and
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
alter it enough that it's different.
M8 style.
Yes. Yes. But so I only really had to do one really good performance for a melodic section in the beginning. And I almost always return to that original theme at the end. So that return is the original performance just changed in the sequencer, right? And then I do the same thing for the middle sections, where I'll go in and find that like what that sound is going to be, and from a melodic perspective, and then I'll copy that melody, make some changes to it, and then I go in and draw the harmonies for the right hand. So like on the right hand part, you can hear that there's a melody, but then there's also like chord shapes that are happening. All of the chords are drawn in. I didn't play a single one of those.
Got it. Like, you're talking MIDI placed.
Yes, yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah.
And I take time to make sure that they're natural, they're not directly on the grid, so there's a lot of like
Mhm.
editing. But I'm not playing that. Like I played the the basic rhythm with my left hand and single note melodies with my right hand, and then I just filled in the gaps, right?
Got it.
So those are the first 2 big tricks, and then the third trick is that I automate the tempo, right? So I'll go through for this particular track. I think it varies from about like 87 BPM to like 103 BPM. And
Oh,
like
that
I said,
much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and it's just enough that it feels like it's moving, but not enough that it's really obvious,
Ah.
right? And like at the very beginning and the very end, it's quite slow, but then it very quickly ramps up to like 98, 97.
So you're emulating a really good piano player that can't keep time.
Yes, exactly. Well, because it breathes.
No, but it's like the
Yeah.
emotion and, like, yeah, I'm just
And
messing with you.
so like so so that that because it breathes, right? When you get to a
Yeah,
section that's more tense, it just naturally flows a little faster. And so like I said before, I accidentally discovered that you could create these Bezier curves on
yeah,
the tempo. So I have it smoothly go through the tempo automation. So those 3 tricks let me go from like what would sound like a 4th grader playing the piano to something that I think sounds like somebody who knows how to play the piano.
yeah, it sounds great, and I'm guessing this made one of your picks because of that sort of, like, production breakthrough?
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is the first, so I don't think it's the first time that I used any one of these tricks, but it's the first time that I used all of them in a way that felt where I got like where Replicator didn't have anything to complain about,
Ah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, and, a complete enough process that you're like, "This is now my process."
Yes, yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, so this one was it felt like a technical achievement, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. And then I really like the composition. Like I think it's a pretty song, or a pretty piece. It doesn't have lyrics, but I like the composition a lot. But yeah, the technical. This one is. I picked because it's a really good magic trick.
Yeah, and very well executed and very human feeling, and like you said, a a great composition, very pretty tune.
Well, thank you, thank you. I think it came out okay.
All right, we're gonna go with "Where We Dwell." Here we go.
And practically all of our people have their eyes enclosed in a thick cartilaginous layer which serves to protect from the dangerous radiation of the I want the birds who discovered the secret. It leads to immense power. Just think of it. I can create an immortal man.
All right, that is a definite change of pace from the first two.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's so. I remember I was talking with a coworker about like just music making in general, and they were like, "Oh, that's cool that you make music. Like, what kind of music do you make?" And I was like, "Well, I do a little bit of like classical, hybrid piano stuff, and some orchestral stuff, and then like industrial bass music."
Some trap music from time to time, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's a weird shift, but it's a lot of fun. And that's really what this track was about. So this I made this track on a week where I had just turned in a major school assignment. So I had spent like the last 3 weeks just in the box working on big orchestral things that was all really fussy, and like it's fun. It's music making. It's good stuff, but
Mhm.
it's like very analytical and like tedious, right? There's tedium to making music in that way.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to dance, you know? Like I just wanted to like make some loud noises and shake my ass around. And
Yeah.
and that is exactly what this track was. Is I patched some stuff up on my modular, and I got at the SQ64, right? And discovered some stuff. In fact, actually a neat little Easter egg in this track is that the bass and the lead are playing the same notes.
No way.
It's the same sequence, right? And it's the same sequence all the way through. I use exactly the same sequence as the root for the whole thing, right?
I didn't notice that,
It's hard to catch. So the reason is essentially what I did is I sequenced out 64 notes, just like all 64 steps have a note on them. And then I have different patterns that are actually playing from one to the next. And then I rotate which
mm,
where it starts. So it
got it.
doesn't seem like it's the same pattern because it's really kind of
Because 'Cause they're
not.
kind of, like, note shifted away from each other.
Exactly, exactly. But it was fast. It was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Let me just like let's see what happens when I play call and response. I'll take this thing and I'll have it play
Yeah,
the first line, and then I'll have the lead play the second line, and it sounded cool. So
and
yeah,
that's
this
a
was
really
just
cool bass sound too.
Oh man. Okay, so that bass sound is the Moog Mavis. The Moog Mavis was my first real synthesizer, right? It was how I dipped my toe into the Eurorack world, right? So
Gateway
it's
drug.
yeah, well, it's that classic Moog like ladder filter and single oscillator, but like just this thick, dirty sound. And then that's all going through the endorphin Ghost, which is just all the processing. It's a module that Andrew Wong did with the folks at Endorphins, and it can do all the things. It's basic like it's got a compressor in it, it's got reverb, it's got delay, it's got distortion, two different ways that you can get saturation and distortion. It's got a high pass and low pass filter. Like it's a beast. It
Yeah,
is
I'm
a
looking at
beast
it.
of a module.
There's nowhere else to put a knob on that modular.
Yeah, exactly. Because it does all the things, and it's for like a small setup like mine, where I'm restricted in space on purpose. A module like that is great, and that is literally for that bass sound. That's all it is. It's Moog Mavis into the Ghost. That's it. All of the processing is happening with those two things, and then the transition from when it sounds real dirty to when it's a little bit pluckier. That's just me twisting the filter. Like that's it.
Man,
Um, yeah.
sounds great.
I love it. I love it. And that was, I think I did like 10 or 11 takes on that one. And it was literally just me. Like I hit play and then I twisted knobs for one of the parts. And then I hit record and twisted the knobs for one of the parts and then switch to the next track and hit play again, twist the knobs for a different section, just shaking my booty around. But
So, what is it about this one that made your third slot out of your 50
so
some odd?
I think the thing that I really like about this one is that it's I think it might actually be the first time that it was like a hardware only like track. This is just modular and the Deluge, right? And the Deluge is really just doing samples and drum machine. So like this is a modular track. And that's one of those things that like got me.
Dallas, bro.
Yeah. Well, and it was like watching like Colin Benders and Julia Bondar playing live sets with just like a modular synth where they're making like this dope dance music. It's like, how the hell do you do that? How do you make something where you can like dance to it and like all you have is a modular synth? Like usually you hear modular synth and it's like this weird experimental stuff or like,
Yeah.
weird ambient things. And cool, it's great for that. But like, how do you do this where you just like, it's
Yeah.
how do you do this? And so this track was like the first one where I feel like I kind of got there, right? Like I got something that felt like a dance track and it was all just modular synth.
Very cool. So you'll be doing more of that.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I feel like I tried to get into that at the end of the year. I spent a lot of time in VCB rack experimenting with processes there that I feel like next year I'm gonna take some big swings for dance music where it's just modular or just VCV rack.
All right, we're all waiting because we want to dance too.
Nice. Well, I'll see what I can do.
All right, we're gonna move on to my picks now. The first one is Glass Threads. All right, that was one of my picks, Glass Threads. And as the title states, it's got these like glass sounding lead melodies that have some delay on them. And when I listened to it, I was just like, I don't know, I something about this. I really like it. It's got a good groove to it, nice hi-hats, just like a chill chill groove.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this one is neat because this is the first track that I made with the Polyand Tracker Mini. This is literally the first week that I got it. And all of the sounds, literally all of this, well, I guess not literally, the risers, I those are not stock sounds,
Okay, okay.
but that's it. Everything else is a stock sound
All
from
right.
Polyand. And that glassy lead sound, that's their uh, WTFM synth engine. So it's an FM synthesizer, and that's basically one of the presets. It's like a Rhodesy kind of a preset that I did a little bit of tweaking on.
Yeah,
But like I said, doing sound design in the synth engines in the tracker is just it's like pulling teeth. So I did as little as I could. Um,
got it.
and actually, all of the melodic parts are the same synthesizer. So there's like a thing in the mid range, and then there's that high section. Those are the same synth voice, just separated across two separate tracks and processed exactly the same way. It's just they're far enough apart from one another that
Yeah.
they're timbrally different. Uh, and then the bass sound is the virtual analog synth engine that again comes with it, and again just a bone stock preset. The way that I tweaked it up a little bit is I found a sample for a sub bass that I laid on top of it and then resampled. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, that's it. There's a really neat trick that I pulled off with this one too, and this is I feel like I discovered this with the tracker. I don't think I've ever done anything with this kind of thing before. But the hi hats are all stock Polyand sounds, but there's actually like 15 samples there, right? So I took like 10 or 11 closed hi hat and then like 4 or 5 open hi hat samples, all as different instruments. And then I went through and panned the instrument, kind of randomly left and right. I tried to keep it balanced so that there's the same number of things that were far left or
Mhm.
near left and this far right and near right. But just kind of randomly went through and panned them. And then similarly went through and randomly put high pass filters on them. So like the high pass, all of this, the sample sounded relatively similar to start off with. So as soon as I high pass it, then they sound really similar. But the high pass filter changed the resonance and the cutoff. It's not exactly the same for each one. And so each one of those samples now sounds like a slightly different hit,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah.
and then I use that fill function to create what was just randomness, switching between the different instruments randomly. But it's only random the first time you hear it, right? So if it's
Mhm.
I do it in a 1 bar sequence and then I duplicate that, now you hear that same exact random sequence again and it sounds like it's intentional. You start to hear a pattern in it even though there wasn't one
Yeah.
to start off with, particularly given that now the panning left and right is also part of the sequence,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, so that was just me messing around with the features that were present in it. Um,
Exploring your new machine
yeah,
and
yeah,
pushing what it can do.
yeah, exactly. Like just figuring out what do these new buttons do.
That's really cool. I'm gonna have to look more into the Polyand Trucker Mini.
It is very cool. It's a very cool device. It does feel a lot like Renoise, and you can get a trial on Renoise. It's on your computer, but it feels very much the same. I think the big difference is, I mean, like obviously the Mini you can take around with you wherever you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the portable nature of it. But there is something to be said for the tactile experience. Just like the M8, there is
Mhm.
nothing quite like the experience of flying around on that thing once you actually
Yeah.
understand how to navigate on it.
And people in your house love the clacky keys too, so
I changed out the key switches on mine. I changed out the key switches on mine. Um,
Uh,
but
alright, we're gonna keep it rolling. My next one is Obsidian Flow. Alright, that was Obsidian Flow, and I always try to pick a variety of songs throughout the year that sort of showcase different abilities, and I would say this is a fire trap-inspired beat, and don't really hear a ton like it on Weekly Beats.
Oh, cool. So the thing I was shooting for with this one was that like night drive, like funk style. And I just like I love the way that the drums work in there, and then they always have a vocal sample someplace that's just like way down in the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just sounds really just buried in reverb, and like it just sounds really dope. And I was trying to get that effect. And the funny thing about this one is this is one of the ones that like so I think one of the best things about the experience on Weekly Beats was getting to commiserate with other people about the feeling of making music, right?
Mhm.
Because I had an idea in my head for what I wanted to make when I started this track, and I never got there. So
Yeah.
every time I hear it, all I hear is the things I didn't accomplish.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? You know what I
Like,
mean? And
we'll get them next time, but this is not it."
yeah, yeah, yeah. And this and I think the reception that this like the comments that came back from this one, nobody else knows what I was trying to do. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Nobody
yeah.
there's a story that Slash from Guns N' Roses tells about when Appetite for Destruction came out. Sweet Child of Mine, the arguably the biggest song that they ever had, was on that album, and he was like, this is a bad song, it shouldn't be on the album, nobody's gonna like this song, right? And when everybody's like, no, 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 we gotta have it on the track, he's like, okay, look, okay, if you want to put a terrible song out, we can put a terrible song out. And then it blew up. And when he tells that story, the way that he finishes it is shows how much I know, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that that is such a great way to think about it, right? Because
yeah.
like, yeah, just fucking shows how much I know. I have weird taste. Who
Yeah,
knows
and
what
I mean,
people are like?
it happens the other way too, where you're like, "Oh, this is a fucking banger," and then sometimes the next day even you're like, "That is not a banger."
Yeah. Oh man,
Or
there's so
or
many
you
times.
put it out, not that comments really mean anything, but if you had been like, have a steady following and then you put something out and then it's like, "Where's where's my steady followers
Yeah.
now?"
Yeah, people are struggling to say nice things about it. Yeah, I think yeah, that there's so many times. There's so many like 11:30, 12 sessions where I'm like, "Yeah, I got this. I got this. So this is so
Yeah,
dope." And it's just because you've heard it 67,000 times on a loop in your head.
yeah.
You go to sleep, you wake up and you listen to it and you're like, "Why did I think this was good?
Yeah,
What was I
it's
doing?"
it's just wild, but, I mean, it goes to show that our, like, our perception of what's good and bad is so terrible.
Well, well, and like I think the thing that's important to recognize is that my taste is not everybody else's, and I'm not. There is some music that I make for me, right? I have a piano downstairs that used to belong to my grandma. I refuse to record that piano because that music is for me and her. That's it. If I'm sitting at
Yeah,
that piano and I'm playing it, that music is for me. I have to like that music, right? But if I'm sitting in the studio plugged into Logic, I'm not doing that shit because it's for me exclusively. I'm doing it
yeah,
because I want to share it with other people. So, yeah, you want to like the music that you make, and that's what motivates you to make the music to begin with. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether I like it. What matters is whether everybody else does, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was watching something on YouTube earlier, and it was this girl talking about whether you should go to, like, a design college or not, or an art college, and she talked about creating this, like, short story video, and she went to all of her other art friends and was like, "What do you think about this concept?" And they're like, "I don't know. This part sucks. This part sucks. You should change this. You should change this." And she made it based on all of her other friends' feedback, and it she was like, "I don't like this." And then she went back and revisited it and abandoned everyone else's vision for it, and it landed up on PBS.
Right.
So she's like, a lot of the times, like the vision that you're shooting for, when you tell it to other people, they sort of twist it with their own vision of things, and so it kind of distorts the whole thing.
Well, and I think vision versus reality is important to separate as an artist as well. So Neon Liminal was talking about this a little bit, but like the thing that I have in my head, there's a point where you got to let go of that,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a point where the song has to be what the song is. It doesn't matter what vision I had. This is so I'm also an illustrator, like I draw cartoons, and there was a really big switch that flipped for me while I was learning to do that, where at first I was copying things. I saw a thing and I tried to copy
Mhm.
what I saw, and it never looked very good, right? Because nothing was ever exactly what I saw on the other side.
Yeah.
And then there was this moment where like I realized that like as I'm copying this thing, sure, I'm gonna use my reference and I work towards the reference, and then I get to a point where it's far enough away from the reference that the reference is not useful anymore. So
Yeah.
I just throw the reference away and I work on the piece as it is, on its own terms. And I think music is the same. There's a point where like you got to let go of the reference track you might be listening to or the idea that you have in your head and just
Yeah.
listen to what you have and make that good.
So true. And being able to throw away some of that inner criticism as well. It's
Yeah.
like it's the same criticism that you're like, Obsidian Flow is doesn't live up to my expectations. Like in another point in time, you may have never shown it to anyone.
Well, I think that was another big lesson that came from Weekly Beats, right? Is everything goes through an ugly phase. Everything, every piece of art anybody ever makes, doesn't matter what the art is, it all passes through an ugly phase. And I think one of the things that separates like bedroom artists who never share anything from people who share their art with the world is the people who share their art with the world learn how to push through the ugly phase,
Yeah.
right? And just trust that, yeah, I don't like it now. And maybe I never will, but I might if I just keep going.
And sometimes art is better a little bit before the like full polish stage, like
Yes.
a little bit of that ugly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes you gotta add some ugly back on, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
what else is a distortion pedal for?
Yeah, it kinda goes back to the like, when people are like, "Oh, it's not ready, I need to polish this song more," and then end up kind of destroying it in the polishing.
I think that's another thing that I really like about working with hardware. There's some grit you'll never get off of it, and so you have to accept it. And you start off with that, right? You
Yeah,
start off from like modular. There's nobody who has a modular system that's not noisy. They're
yeah,
all
yeah,
noisy, right? And so if you're starting from that place, you don't have the impetus to try and polish it because you can't, right?
yeah,
Whereas like if I'm in the DAW and I'm working with all perfect sounds, I want to try and make it perfect, right?
yeah.
But you know,
Well, we've got one more song that we'll play the episode out with, but our time is up. The final song is Gossamer Steps.
another creepy one.
I like the creepy ones, I guess. I think I have a soft spot for these songs that kind of do some music theory based scale modal exploration. I remember now talking with Gravecat about Obscura Materia, where he did some kind of interval explorations. And I think I just like the kind of unexpected turns that happen. Like,
Sure.
we've heard a lot of the typical scales so many times that when we, you know, take a little bit of a different road, it's like, "Oh, that's really interesting."
Oh,
And
and
this
see,
is one of those.
this is it's this one is so cool too because it's not a road I ever would have gone down on my own. The like I tend to, I write very modal music and I move around in the various typical modes a lot, but I don't ever go into the weird stuff like hardly ever.
Yeah.
Um, but But for this particular track, there was a Viridian Loom track that was awesome, and that very like Viridian Loom sound, right? Like that metally, like shoegazy, like goth rocky thing that
Yeah.
he does so well. And he was using this scale, and I commented on
Lydian
it.
diminished.
Lydian
For
diminished,
those
yeah.
following along out there.
Lydian minor, Lydian flat three. So the he and yeah, so he was using this scale, and I commented on how awesome it sounded, and he was like, "Yeah," talked a little bit about the scale, and then was like, "It'd be really cool if you did one of your piano-y type things with this." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe it would be kind of cool." And so yeah, I just got lost in it. And it's just a very cool sound. There was a part of amongst the comments, somebody mentioned that it had a very Twin Peaks
Mm.
sound to it,
I'm
and
getting like creepy lullaby
yeah.
vibes from
All
it.
right. So there's a specific trick for this one. This is something I stole from Danny Elfman. So Lydian as a mode tends to sound really magical, right? Yoda's theme is written in Lydian. So Danny Elfman, and for those who aren't familiar, Danny Elfman is like anything you've ever seen that was made by Tim Burton. Danny Elfman probably composed it. He was also lead singer for Oingo Boingo, but you can skip that part. and then and then John Williams uses Lydian for lots of different things, but the real trick here is it usually sounds really magical because of the raised fourth of the normal Lydian scale. Diminished has a flat three, so you end up with this really unusually big step between the third and fourth step, which sounds unnatural. It doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
but it's still this thing that culturally feels like a magical scale, right? So something that's not quite right, but also magical. And so what I did is Danny Elfman, whenever he wants to make something unobviously creepy, he separates the bass sound from the melody sound by just like 3 octaves, right? So on the piano, you just move your hands further apart, and that's what I did here. So I pulled
Mm.
the melody way up into the higher octaves, and then the bass down low, and used a Rhodes sound, the Rhodes V8, I think, for this one. So it has that nice kind of like that Tyne bell sound. But then what you get is the creepiness isn't so obvious anymore, because the weird separation between the third and the fourth, when they show up, they're usually 3 octaves apart.
Got it.
Right. So it's not so very
It's
clearly
not like in
unusual.
your face.
Exactly. So it just has this unnerving kind of tense feel to it.
Yeah.
Right. And then because of that high, like glockenspiel type sound that you get from the top end of a Rhodes, that makes it sound like a music box. And like
Yeah.
creepy music box is just like a little kid murder ghost. That's right? Like that sound just
Yeah.
sounds like a horror film where a little girl in a blue dress turns around in an unnatural way. Like it just sounds like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Creepy. It's a
Nailed it.
creepy sound. Yeah.
Well, cool. We will let everyone hear that creepy goodness and close out the episode.
Awesome.
But thanks for being on. Time flew by as it usually does.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. Like, thanks for having me. It was fun to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Always fun to nerd out about music.
Yeah, I feel like I could talk another hour about sequencers and stuff, but we will spare everyone.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah, cool. Well, everyone, have a good time listening to this, and thanks again, Napier. And we'll see you out there. Maybe we need to collab
Hey,
this upcoming year.
I am always down.
Cool.
100%.
Cool.
We'll do it. And sweet dreams to everybody going out on this song.
Yeah. Play this one before bed for sure. All right. Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.